Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Smith has asked to have a few words before we observe the moment of silence.
Yeah, this last week has been, for some families, have been devastating. I have a few people here I want to just mention. Last week, Mr. Gene Young passed away, and most of y'all know him from Lansing. In fact, he was the first Lansing city council member when the city was incorporated in 1959. You may also know him from Young Sign Company and their artwork. Very talented kids himself. And if you ever see anything in Lansing, he's probably got his mark on it because of the way he volunteered for everything. I just should love to sit down and talk to him. He has had so much history for this county, and he will be missed. Another one that I'd like to bring up is a few months ago I reported that Dave Trinkle had to step down as a council member for the city of Lansing. His wife Donna passed away just a couple months ago. Sad to report that last week Dave lost his life with a serious illness that he'd been battling with. And for y'all don't know Dave, he served on the Lansing Council for over 20 years. I can remember when he came into my office when I was a young city administrator, we were looking for good council members. And that key that were good. And he came in and he sat down after talking to him. I knew right away that he was going to be what we needed. Common sense, doesn't out to hurt anybody, just try to make the world a better place. And he served 20 years, and I could always see him cracking up or smiling or having a joke. He always picked on me, but because I knew he was okay when he was doing that. But he passed away, and he'll definitely be missed. And then someone that I got a call on yesterday out of the blue, Jeff Holt, who worked with me for 40 years at Lansing, retired 2 years ago. He's our street superintendent. I got a call from his daughter. He was down visiting her in North Carolina, and he died unexpectedly. So, my heart goes out to these folks. Also, if you didn't know, Jeff Holt's son has worked for the Leavenworth County for ever since he got out of high school, I believe it's been. So, that's a lot of things to get hit with. And I'd end on this, though. Life is short, folks. Enjoy every day. Be good to each other. And just to enjoy the time you're here on earth. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure. I would please observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Begin the roll call, beginning with Commissioner Doug Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Stephen.
Here.
Commissioner Culberson.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Smith.
Here.
And I'm Vicki Cosm here. All right. Public comment for agenda items. I think we have Mr. McMillan.
Madam Chair, do you want me to comment now or before the public policy?
No, now would be the time, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. Eric McMillan from Easton Township. I'm here again. Almost wish the county had a frequent flyer program for public commenters, but I don't think we do that. I'm going to slip in a quick non-agenda item. Thanks to Commissioner Cos, Chair Cos. She took my wife and I on quite a good tour of the new Council on Aging facility there at the old Cushing building, so wanted to thank you, Madam Chair, for that. Now on to my agenda item. Bottom line up front, once again, please keep all public comment on YouTube, both on BOCC agenda items and non-agenda items. As I said two weeks ago in my public comments, I think we should take a friends and neighbors approach to this. A number of people use YouTube to watch these meetings, and it would be hard to imagine them not wanting to watch what their friends and neighbors have to say about non-agenda items. If a Leavenworth County citizen and taxpayer takes the time to come here and make public comment, they and others in the county, I would say, probably feel it's a pretty important issue. There are understandable concerns. They are understandable concerns about a cuss word coming out, that the county might have some bit of secondary liability if someone says something defamatory, or that YouTube in California might get their knickers in a knot over some issues. Understand that. I think these concerns can be easily managed amongst ourselves or through the gentle but firm direction of the chair. I think that you as our elected representatives can ably handle such things and keep the whole meeting available to those that can't be here. Agreed, there is no state law requirement for public comment in these meetings or putting all or part of these meetings on YouTube, but the state law here represents kind of the floor and not the ceiling, not the best, perhaps. Once given, taking a freedom away sends a signal, and I know this was given through efforts of the commissioners, but it sends a signal sometimes bigger than the original issue. I hope today you, as our commissioners, will resolve to keep all of these meetings, all of the content of the meetings on YouTube. And the signal sent today will be that the path forward is one of more transparency and cooperation between Leavenworth County government and the citizens of Leavenworth County as friends and neighbors. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll have no other public comment at this time, so we'll move on to administrative business. Mark, do you have anything? Nothing? Any of you have anything for administrative
I don't think
business today? All right, then we will move on to the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and second. Begin voting with Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens?
Aye.
Commissioner Culbertson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay. Formal board action. Consider a motion to approve a one-year contract with Accessible Solutions Incorporated for cloud-based client software in the amount of $7,925.
Commissioners, good morning.
Good morning.
The Serve Tracker software in this contract is something that we've been using for a year. In the year that we've been using this software, it's allowed us a comprehensive client software so that we can track every service that folks receive to ensure that nothing falls through the cracks. Within that year, they were purchased by another company, which prompted the need for the update in the contract. This is an expense that's budgeted in the Council on Aging budget as we moved from a paper-based system to a digital system. So it's just updating their paperwork, something that we're using every day, and then it would renew in subsequent one-year terms automatically unless there was some change that was needed.
Anybody have any questions for Connie?
I don't. I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve a one-year contract, Accessible Solutions, Inc., for cloud-based client software in the amount of $7,925.
I'll second it.
Motion and second. Begin voting with Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens?
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
I vote aye. Okay. Thank you, Connie. Have a good one.
Connie?
Okay, we're going to consider a motion to approve the application for the fiscal year 2024 Juvenile Comprehensive Plan, the FY 2024 to 2025 JCAB grant, and the FY 24 Non-Matching Juvenile Crime Prevention Community Grant. Good evening, or good morning, Jamie.
Good morning,
Commissioners, before Jamie starts, I'd just like to bring something up that I've shared with all of you last week. We were notified through the state that our local juvenile corrections folks were number one in the state for utilization of the screening tool that the state implemented. Jamie took over juvenile detention 2 years ago,
2 years
approximately. At that time, I think we were about 89% compliant when they first came in, and this last year we were number one in the state at 99% compliance. I think that just shows the amount of dedication and work that Jamie and her staff put into this and how much they take their job seriously. I'm very fortunate to have Jamie leading the ship over there. I've been really happy with the results since Jamie came on. And also, there are areas of the state that are somewhat less than 99%, some as low as under 5%, according to the state report.
Goodness.
So they have asked Jamie to kind of mentor or provide training on best practices because of the success rate that she's had. So I just wanted to point that out and just give a kudos to Jamie and her staff.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm going
you
to
so
read
much,
that.
Jamie.
Jamie, that's impressive. That's impressive.
job.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't want to take all the credit. I believe that leadership is servant leadership, and my job as the administrator is just to apply for grants and advocate for the resources that my staff on the front line need to be successful and to guide them in doing our best. And I think, they're just as much, to thank for what we're doing.
And when people lead that way, usually you find that organization successful. Thank you.
And we as a board have got to continue with our pay plan
Yeah.
to make sure we retain these employees that are doing such a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you and your staff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, go right ahead.
Would you like me to do them one at a time? So we do motions for each one, or
I think we can
do them all three?
do
as
them all three at
package?
one time, can't we?
We sat through
Should
them
we?
one at a time.
Oh, well. Okay.
It doesn't matter.
I think I can do them all in one motion.
I can't imagine this board not passing this.
But before we do that, I want to thank Jamie for all of her hard work in putting together all of the information for the grants. Some of those are not, they are outside of what is required for the county as far as state, and they are grants that she has to work on and do as it's part of her job, but not all individuals, because some of these grants can be applied for nonprofit organizations, by other entities, and Jamie just takes the initiative to do so. So, yes.
Madam Chair, members of the Commissioners, I truly enjoy giving you additional things to do and taking your time. So I would advise you that due to some state requirements, you consider each of these three items separately and approve them each by separate motion.
I
Okay.
think that's just the safest.
All right.
All right. Well, the first grant we are requesting approval for is the FY 2024 Juvenile Comprehensive Plan.
Yeah. I'll move that we approve the 2024 Juvenile Comprehensive Plan grant.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Begin voting with Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens?
Aye.
Commissioner Colson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay, now we will move on to the next, which is the FY JCAP grant.
Yes, ma'am. The second grant we are requesting approval for is the FY 24 and 25 JCAP grant.
Does anybody have any questions before we? Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Smith. You have a motion?
I move that we approve the 2024 and 2025 JCAB grant.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Begin voting with Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith? Aye. I vote aye as well. Okay, and now we're to the next one, the 2024 non-matching.
Yes, our final juvenile grant that we are requesting approval for is the FY 24 non-matching juvenile crime prevention community grant.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the 2024 non-matching juvenile crime prevention community grant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Begin voting with Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens?
Aye.
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 I vote aye as well. And just to add, that is one of them that Jamie has put a great deal of effort, time and effort into, and provides, that's the education. You want to give just a little bit of a brief overview of what we do with that specific grant that is
Yes.
added value to our communities?
Yes, so on our JCAB, we have an education representative. We also have the county attorney's office represented, as well as our judge. And one of the concerns that came up over the year is chronic absenteeism and truancy, and also the crossover between youth who are struggling with welfare issues in the home that get in the way of obtaining their education and going to school, and may also lead to future crime and delinquency. So we applied for the non-matching crime prevention grant in October of 2021, and it covered the end of FY22 and all of FY23. and it was how we were able to get a prevention specialist inside of USD 453 who we have partnered with, and also to expand classes or programs and resources, not just to at-risk youth, but also their parents if they need help with parenting and coping with behavioral issues, as well as to provide free classes to parents and youth to help strengthen family functions and just household dynamics. It helps reinforce that parents, love their children with limits, but it also helps youth understand and empathize with parents and adults, and that, they're just trying to guide them to be wonderful adults.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Anything else?
While Jamie's here, do we need to discuss whether we need to have a work session with Atchison County, or is that something we need to talk about at a later date?
Well, we
To
can
have a MOU or interlocal agreement or anything?
Do you want to kind of give a little bit of background on that?
Yeah,
Bob, or
people
just
need to
so
know
that
about this, yeah.
So there's some clarity.
So, commissioners, I know at the last JCAB meeting there was discussion. I'll just leave it at that. But that there may be. First of all, we've identified that what they've been operating under is not truly an interlocal agreement, so it doesn't have the right. It hasn't been vetted the correct way, and if we're going to continue the operations as we are currently, then we need to have an updated MOU between Atchison and Leavenworth County. More importantly, probably things have changed to the point that I'm not sure that that's even needed. So we may need to have that work session, a joint work session with Atchison County Board of Commissioners and y'all, so that you can kind of hash that out and decide if that's even the direction you need to go anymore. I think the way the funding is allocated now, that may not be something you have to do. So definitely would be worthwhile. And if you would like, we can reach out to them and see if they're interested. And if they are, try to schedule something where you have a joint work session on the issue.
Well, the reason I brought it up is because two of us are on the JCAB board, and we can't come back and report to these other commissioners unless it's in an open meeting. So,
Yeah.
and that's something if we're gonna be operating, we need at least an MOU or an interlocal agreement,
I agree.
or we just don't. I guess.
And a lot of discussion on this issue anyway needs to happen. I agree with you, Commissioner.
So would you like for us to attempt to schedule a joint work session between the two commissions?
Please do so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think is that all for Jamie? And
I
for
think
this
so.
topic? Okay. Thank you,
All right,
Jamie.
thank you.
And thank you for your support. I appreciate it.
Okay, now we need to consider a motion to approve Board Order 2023-3, a disaster tax relief abatement located at 23390 175th Street.
Hi, Bob.
Good
Morning.
afternoon.
Morning, Bob.
Okay.
This is another one of those disaster relief abatements for a house that burned. It was at the end of the year, so it's a small amount, but
Okay.
for 8 days, we're abating it off the tax.
Any questions?
No, I think it's in my
Okay,
area.
motion. Go
So
ahead.
I move that we approve Board Order 2023-3, a disaster tax relief abatement located at 23390 175th Street.
Second.
Motion and a second. Begin voting with Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
Wilson. Commissioner
Aye.
Smith. And I vote aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Good seeing you, Bob.
Now we need to consider a motion to approve Resolution 2023-4, conditionally approving the issuance of a special use permit to Orison LLC for the operation of Whiskey Ridge Event Center, subject to all conditions. Amy.
Good morning, Commissioners. Before you is a request that you guys have seen multiple times. Staff did provide an updated a memo stating what happened in the last meeting. Staff has also provided an updated resolution addressing all those comments that you guys had in regards to switching over to 2 certified firefighters and a private fire truck that is certified per state requirements. On the resolution, it has been presented to you. Obviously, the applicant and their agent is here for you guys. So if you have any questions for us, please let us know.
Anybody have any questions?
If I may, approach, we have the pump that was certified recently within the last week, and we have an annual inspection report done. I only got one copy of this because I just got this morning, so I don't have the extras. Can I bring those up and provide those to you?
Sure.
I'll get copies of these.
It always happens like that. Let me tell you. Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions, comments before we?
Could I make a couple more quick
Oh,
comments,
sure.
if you don't mind?
Okay.
All right. What we're asking is that basically, well, we have two events scheduled in May. There's a wedding on May 7th, and there is a family reunion on May 27th. The next event scheduled isn't until September 23rd. Okay, so that we've got that gap of time. They've got a second bid. They're in the process of comparing the two bids for the fire sprinklers to be installed, which they're going to proceed with that and get it done. So if you would permit us to go ahead and do these events with the fire watch, with the truck that's been certified, and the off-duty firemen from other places, we're going to have a 4-month gap in time for the fire sprinkler companies to come in and start working on it. Now, how long things take in construction, you probably know better than I do because your family's in that business. But we're going to ask them to push it through as quickly as possible. And during that period of time, I talked to Mr. Lynch yesterday. I think Mr. Lynch would agree. They're not going to schedule anything else during that 4-month period of time. So from May 27th until September 23rd, there will be nothing scheduled other than just trying to get this fire sprinkler system installed. So we're asking that the board be kind enough to let this.
I've got one question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, because I have one question for you. After reviewing this, I see the truck to load for overload test, and I see a couple of things here that don't really concern me, but I just want to make sure we bring this out. The truck was inspected, but for what it'll be handling while y'all are getting ready to put your sprinklers and things in, it was certified that they feel that it will handle any issue that arises out there.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out.
That's all I have.
Any other questions? I would entertain a motion. You want to do that?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I move that the board adopt by reference the findings of the Planning Commission and approve Resolution 2023-4 conditionally granting the issuance of a special use permit to Orson LLC for the operation of the Whiskey Ridge Event Center, subject to all conditions as stated in the resolution.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Begin voting.
I need discussion.
Discussion. Oh, yes, please. I'm sorry. Discussion.
I wanted to know how many events have you had at the facility up to this point?
2 is my understanding. 1, and then we received a letter, and they stopped doing it. And then 3 weeks ago, it'll be 3 weeks ago, this coming Sunday, we had the one that we talked about at the meeting. And then you guys said it was, go ahead, we could proceed.
All right. And then one thing, I had some additional correspondence on the building permit. The building permit application, you said last week at the meeting you were all along planning to build a venue, correct?
That was the general plan before the big COVID blow up. We put up a building thinking we would turn it into an event center at some point, but thankfully we were able to finish it. We did go ahead and start booking stuff as soon as people saw concrete being poured. They were calling us, so that kind of made our decision for us. Yes.
So help me understand on your building permit. Your contractor applied for type of permit, accessory building permit, and accessory. The use for that permit was to be a storage.
Yes,
So,
I think
I'm
sorry.
So my question is, if it was going to be you were planning to make it an event venue all along, why was that the way the application read?
I thought I addressed this last week in an explanation, but I'll be
Well,
happy to do it. If that's no problem, I'm happy to do it again. We talked to the gentleman that was our contractor, and basically what he told us was that he came up and applied for the building permit and told him this is what we're planning on doing. Somebody in the office suggested to him, he doesn't remember who, he said it was a lady, he says somebody suggested to him that he asked for an accessory building permit now and then transfer it over or convert it over to a commercial building permit and would save him some money at that point in time. He didn't really know. He just kind of took her advice like it was okay. So he applied for an accessory building permit.
So the answer that you're giving me is that it was staff's recommendation.
In which department?
They made a comment to him suggesting that. That's what he told us.
So
somebody suggested that.
Staff recommended that you fill it out that way.
That's what I was told. I mean, that's what we were told. I was told in an email. I haven't talked to him.
And the final question I have is, at the bottom of that same building permit form, have you read the statement above the signature line?
Let's see. The building permit form, let me see.
The Leavenworth County building permit application.
Who does that go through? Which department does that go through?
You have a copy of that in front of you?
I am. I'm looking at it right
I
now,
don't know
sir.
which staff
Okay.
member.
Can you read that paragraph above the signature?
Sure. Upon the signing of this permit, the applicant accepts responsibility to build their permitted commercial or single-family residence in accordance with the International Building Code 2006 edition, which was adopted by the Board of County Commissioners on December 16, 2020.
So that was in the app. So there was no surprise that was part of this.
You know, I can only speak for what I've been told. I haven't discussed that with him. You know, contractors get up, they sign, they say, hand them something, they sign it. You know, I mean, maybe not all of them, but some people do, and maybe he did.
I take
I'm just
exception
guessing.
with that.
Well,
to that.
some people do. I know. I've had clients that come in and tell me they just signed. I mean, you stick something in front
You
of them.
wouldn't want to do that in a real estate transaction, would you?
No, I don't recommend it. I never recommend it, being a lawyer, but I'm saying that does it happen in practice? Sometimes it does, yeah. You know. But in the building permit that was issued, even it references single-family residence once again. So apparently, that there was a mistake at some point in time. Something happened. The wrong permit was issued, and like I said,
okay, that's all I have.
They could upgrade it. So
What we can understand is that, at the beginning of this, were there mistakes made? Of course. I don't. This isn't my job, obviously. I take full responsibility for the mistakes that were made. The thing is, now we have a building and we need to move forward. And if you would like to give us any information on how that could happen, we would greatly appreciate it. But I can't go back and change what happened a year and a half ago or a year ago. I can't do anything about that right now. All I can do is ask that you would grant us a little grace to get these two events out of the way so that we can get on with this. We are putting in sprinklers 100%. You can manage everything every step of the way if you choose to do that. And it's going to be, it'll be the best event center in the county at that point. But right now we just need a way to get from here to point B. And if you could help us with that, we would greatly appreciate it.
I just want to clarify. I do not believe for 1 minute, regardless of what a contractor told you. First of all, that's ridiculous. I do not believe for 1 minute, not for 1 second, that one of our staff members recommended that somebody take that course of action in applying for this permit. I do not believe it. And I am telling you, I do not believe it, and I want to be on the record stating that I do not believe that. Our staff is very thorough, very professional, and they would never do that. I'm standing up for my staff. This is ridiculous, and it should have never even been stated. But aside from that.
You got a motion and a second.
The motion and a second. I'll begin voting with Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Stephen.
No.
Commissioner Culbertson.
Abstain.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Costa votes no.
David, what does that do?
Commissioners, under Kansas law, an abstention follows the majority vote. However, in the event of a tie, an abstention is no vote. So the current vote is 2-2. It being an affirmative motion, the motion fails.
And I would like to make a motion to return this back to the Planning and Zoning Commission until the sprinklers have been constructed, and bring it back, and waive the one-year requirement.
Motion. Is there a second?
So tell me how this would work. It would go, as soon as the sprinklers were installed, then they could reapply.
It would just come back to us.
They wouldn't have to go reapply and go through the whole motions again. As soon as the
Well, I'd
sprinklers
have to ask staff what the,
Commissioners, generally, when you refer a matter back to the Planning Commission, its purpose is not to park it there. It's to have the Planning Commission re-examine specific issues that the Board of County Commissioners has identified that they believe either were missed by the Planning Commission or require additional study. So if you're going to refer it back to the Planning Commission, I think you need to enumerate those specific matters that you wish them to consider. Further, if you refer it back to the Planning Commission would be required to provide both mailed and published notice to the property owners within the 1,000-foot radius and conduct an additional public hearing prior to it being referred back to you.
and the issue would be that the sprinklers.
But if they install the sprinklers, why couldn't we just have it come back before us? And it's,
Well, I'm just trying to find the right procedure for that.
well, that's
Could I ask a question just so maybe you can clarify this while
Absolutely.
you're discussing it? There was a vote taken 2 weeks ago. It was an aye, an nay, an aye, and an aye. An abstention. My understanding from that vote, and maybe I'm wrong, but maybe you correct me, but my understanding from that vote was you approved the special use permit conditionally upon us having a fire watch with the fire personnel and a fire vehicle from the township fire department. What I came back with last week was the township fell through for us, and I thought the only issue before you today is not a matter of going back and deciding whether or not you're approving the special use permit, because I think it's already been approved by a vote of this board, 3-1 with one abstention, and the only issue was whether or not we can use our fire truck and off-duty fire personnel from other locations, other departments, rather than the township fire department. That was my understanding of it. So I'm not sure that tabling it or pushing it back to a planning commission or something like that is the appropriate action to be taken right now. Because my understanding was it's already been approved, subject to that one issue.
We didn't have the resolution yet.
David's got something.
Is that not just a matter of formality after you've already voted?
Well, I just want to clarify that I've been consistent. I'm one that we have and I think that I stated that the last time. We have policy, we have procedures, and if they're not followed,
I understand. And you've been the nay all 3 times.
So
You're no
I'm just
question
being, and I think that if anybody has observed my voting record, it is
true.
pretty consistent when it comes to that type of thing, and I cannot make an exception, even if I love the idea of what's happening. I voted no on having an event center that was built for kids to have indoor baseball. I mean, it's just.
Madam Chair, can I have a
So
moment?
I don't know. I would ask David.
Madam Chair, my memory is not perfect, but my recollection is that the vote that was taken to allow the operation was specifically identified as a temporary special use permit, not the special use permit itself. And that
for one event.
For one event and with an expiration date. Just not to be argumentative, but that's my recollection.
And
we
I
can pull
haven't-
up the minutes if we need to.
And mine is different. I'm sorry, but my recollection it was for, it may have been temporary use permit,
Let's have
special
Becky
use
get a
permit, but
copy
it was
of the
for the whole
minutes.
thing.
I'm good. Thanks, David. I see how the vote's gone already. Very disappointed. I would have liked to have seen, if we were going to deny this, that we didn't put this group of people through all these hoops to jump, and then they jump through every one of them we've asked for, and then we come back and deny it. I don't like the way it happened in the beginning. I think y'all were wrong. I don't believe the staff did anything wrong. I think that there were some things that dropped through. But this gets us through and also allowed them to also put in the sprinkler system, what we said. I'm very disappointed that if we were going to not okay this, or we were going to change votes on this, then we should have done it earlier instead of having them to go out and jump through all these hoops. And now you say, by the way, I've changed my mind. It's not like they haven't made the effort. I agree, they didn't follow procedure. I'm not saying that. Nobody walks on water. And I was very troubled by it when I first saw it. But after I saw the things they were trying to do to get this approved, just to get to where they could do a sprinkler system, and we're trying to grow Leavenworth County, and let me tell you, I'd rather have 2 firefighters and a fire truck sitting there on my land than a sprinkler system. So I don't know why we would do something like this. Again, I wanted to vent, and I'm sorry it didn't pass, but I just wanted to make sure everyone understood where I felt. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment.
So can we give a temporary special use permit for the 2 events they've got scheduled?
Commissioners, you've denied the special use permit. You could consider granting a temporary special use permit. However, we have no application. I believe there is a procedure for temporary special use permits. It doesn't go before the Planning Commission. It's a very expedited process. Generally, staff has authorization to issue these. However, given the history of this matter, I would suggest it would need to be issued by this board.
What kind of time are you talking to do this?
Well, I would suggest at minimum a week.
I think it's more than a week. Well, Amy.
Typically, it's a 30-day timeline that we do hold for those types of permits.
And you got an event May 7th?
May 7th.
You know, that's not this board's fault that you have an event. And it's like making this board out to be, we're the bad guy because you're going to have to cancel your event. It's not true. And what my issue here is, I want to treat everybody fair. Everybody in this county that applies for an application for any kind of a special use permit or any kind of an application for land use has to be treated equally and fair. The appearance here, if we continue down this road, is that we are just bending over backwards to make this happen. And that's a bad appearance because we are going to treat everybody fairly. Not everybody has the money to go out and buy a fire truck that would have an event center. And yet we are having to be looked at as if we are the ones that made this decision. You made the decision to go ahead and schedule the events when you did not have the legal authority to do so, which is a requirement of the county to have a special use permit. Now, if I would vote in favor of allowing you to have a special dispensation on this, what is everybody else in the district going to say about that, that says, well, you're giving this person special treatment, but what about us? And I think that's something that this board needs to consider, and also consider how it makes the commission look.
You know, but how many wedding venues or event centers do we have in the county that don't have sprinklers, that have got a variance?
This is the first one post the codes that has come before us.
All of them still fall under the state fire marshal, and they have gotten a variance from it. And it's the same code that they got a variance from the state.
We have adopted the code.
And it's the same code as the state fire marshal.
The state, you read the state fire marshal's letter as I did, and it said,
I'm not going to grant
one at a time, please.
I wouldn't have a problem with what you said, Commissioner Stephen, if we hadn't directed these people to do certain things, and you had voted to support this, and maybe it was only for one thing. I wouldn't have a problem with this at all. But we've had them go down this route again, and to do what we ask, and it's not right. But this board has been over for people before because we're human and we try to work with people, and I think we're doing a better job of getting our codes and things in place. But we asked these people to jump through some hoops. They jumped it, and you supported it, and now when it comes back to us, okay, I can't do that any longer. This is not like they're not going to put in a sprinkler system, Mike.
the reason I made it very clear last week what my position was. It was what we had agreed to initially with the attorney was that you were going to have, and they indicated that they had a verbal agreement with the township to provide the fire protection. If we get into the role of saying that individuals are going to be able to do the fire watch, we have no idea. We're not, as the county, in a position to certify the fire truck. We're not in a position to regulate that kind of thing. That is better handled by an actual fire district or fire department. That was my position. So I've not changed my position. My position was that I would have supported this if it had been a fire department certified, not a private entity where we're going to be responsible for this regulation of this truck, whether it's up to speed or not. I have no idea what this.
Mike, as I recall, you're the one that asked for this.
I absolutely.
And now they brought it to us.
What I said was that one of my constituents had brought this up, that whether it had a pumper test. That's what I said last week.
Okay. Well,
So
That's enough.
we have.
you said you would support this if another township fire department would agree to provide fire watch for their events. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So,
And I said that last week.
okay, as long as it's a township, so another
Or
township.
the city of Tonganoxie.
Or city of Tonganoxie. Okay. So you're saying, but we've already denied this. Or are we saying we could revisit this if a township fire department would step up and say, hey, we'll provide fire protection?
I would consider
support that?
supporting it at that point. But what I'm saying now to the board as a whole, just keeping this going, keeping this alive, it makes the commission look like we are carrying water for certain individuals.
That's not my.
I don't think so.
I
Commissioners.
I think that Mark Lothry has something to say. And before Mark says anything, can you go ahead and introduce our new planning and we haven't done
Sure.
that. So
Well,
I think that would help because I think he had something he wanted to say as well. So can we kind of?
Yeah, I was hoping to have the opportunity to do that. Commissioners, John Jacobson is our new planning and zoning director. Monday was his first day here. John previously served in the city of Lansing for more years than I probably want to give him credit for because people might think he's older than he is. And then he's been at Roland Park, I believe, since then. Has a lot of experience. We're very, very happy to have somebody with his background and experience come on board and fill the position. And look forward to working with him and making some changes to our current codes and just improving our process. That's always our goal in every department. Is every year we just try to improve the process and get better. So glad to have John on board. What I would say with as regards to this item, you've denied the resolution. What that means is they would have to reapply through planning and zoning to get an SUP. Typically, you have to wait a year unless there's a significant change. The board can waive that year. We've done that in the past for other applicants. So
Now, wait a second. We've changed the rule before?
we have done that in the past.
No, wait a second. We've changed the rule to accommodate something. Is that correct?
The Board of County Commissioners has allowed and waived 1 year.
So the answer is yes.
in
Okay,
the past,
thank you.
yes. So if you all wanted to do that, you could waive that 1 year time, but it would still have to go back through the Planning Commission process because as a SUP, which is a rezoning, you can't simply just put it on the table and bring it back up whenever because it requires public comment, public notice. So that's that part of it. The temporary special use permit is which was granted for the bridal shower that was a few weeks ago, I believe. That could be used, that process could be used to handle the 2 events they have. I think he said it's just 2 until September. That could be used for that. One of those probably falls outside of our normal 30-day process, but we have, as staff, expedited these applications before. We give 30 days because it takes some follow-up, but we have expedited those before for certain events. I can think of a few bicycle events that we've expedited them before. So we could get it through in time and get it to this board for approval if y'all wanted to before the May 7th deadline. So that's happened. And I know the process. I know where we went to get here. We can all agree that there was a better way to handle this. But I would tell you that the state fire marshal, before he understood that we had fire code, that granted an exception. Our advisory committee said no on that exception, which means they have to put in a sprinkler system. And I think they've agreed to do that. Then the process is how do we get them to that sprinkler system? So they don't have a contract currently signed to install that, but they've said they're going to do it, and I think they fully intend to do that. I have no reason to not suspect that. So I think the temporary special use permits for those events for you to consider would be the right way to go forward on this if you want to. Clearly you don't have to, but I would encourage the applicant to fill out a temporary special use permit, especially for the one on May 7th, immediately. And then we could get that back to you all, and you can consider it at that time.
John, did you have something you wanted to say? You acted like you might have, so I was just checking.
Again, I think Mark covered most
Okay.
everything that I was going to say earlier. I think, yeah, an expedited process is probably warranted in this particular situation.
Mr. Chair, comment. If this were brought up, I would want two things for me to vote for it. I would want to have a local fire department providing the protection, and I would want to have a contract in hand that shows that the sprinklers have been contracted for and let.
May I ask you a question about that? Clarification? Okay. When you say a local fire department providing the protection, you talking about an actual fire department on staff, or you talking about off-duty firemen from local, and what is what
An
you
actual
consider
fire
local?
department, a township fire department, or the city of Tonganoxie.
Okay.
And I said that last week. So this isn't a surprise.
Yeah, you asked for a test for our truck as well.
I did. I asked if a test had been done on the truck.
Okay. What was the second one? I wrote down the first one. What was your second?
That a contract is let and for the sprinkler system.
Okay. And that's what your vote is going to be with respect to whether or not you would vote yea for a temporary permit. Is that what you're saying?
For any.
Mr. Chair, Madam Chairman, you can't pre-vote on matters, and I understand
Right.
Mr. Stevens expressing his concerns, but you cannot precondition a temporary special use permit or any matter that pertains to zoning issues. And zoning issues are governed by a specific set of rules. They're generally referred to as the golden factors. In this case, public safety comes into the play as well. But I would suggest that you allow the applicant to submit a temporary special use permit application and examine it fully at that time.
And I did not intend to be suggesting that I was pre-forecasting my vote, except for the fact that those are my concerns.
I do have one question for staff. Is there anything in the legislature that's going to change the way we enforce any zoning on any of these things at this time?
Commissioner Smith, excuse me, I have not received any notice from the Kansas Association of Counties on that matter, but with the legislature, it's hard to predict until they go into final recess.
Okay. And there wasn't some bill about tourism, ag tourism or something?
There is an issue of ag tourism. I don't know if it would apply to this matter since I'm not aware of any agricultural component to the proposed use.
Okay, can we kind of move? That's kind of not what that's not on the agenda to discuss. I mean, we dealt with this. We have given a recommendation as to.
So we don't have to vote.
We don't have anything to vote on, but I think that the next thing to do is to go with.
You would need to vote on whether you're going to waive the 1-year period for reapplying for the SUP. You don't have to do that today if you don't want to, but you would have to do that before they get to that point.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we waive the 1-year waiting period for reapply.
Second.
Motion and second. Begin voting with Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, but I would suggest that you go and talk with Amy and John to try to get an expedited special use permit so that it can be put back on, or for it's a what's it called? It's a special, temporary special use permit for any events that you might be wanting to hold, but for the two. I'll put it that way. Okay, now we are down to...
Thank you.
Thank you. Consider a motion to approve the updated public comment policy.
Welcome, John.
Discussion. I think that probably given some of the comments and things, I'm just going to start, that I would say that we need to just maintain our policy as is and not make any changes to the policy. That's just my opinion, and I'm open for discussion before we have any.
Was that a motion?
Well, I could do that. I move that we.
Actually, Commissioner, if you don't need a motion to continue the status quo.
Okay, well, I'm suggesting that we continue the status quo, just so that we don't have, that we just continue to do things as we've done.
I'll imaginary second that.
Okay.
Well, let me ask the question then.
With a consensus, how we do that.
What you're saying is you don't want to give. I know I'm maybe talking two different issues, so I'm sorry that I'm getting this confused. Are we voting on audience participation being shown on?
And we're going to be exactly the way that the policy
Then
is.
I can't support that.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Chair, I have reached out to our current insurance carrier and asked them to put me in touch with their risk management division to discuss issues with regards to public comment. I would offer this suggestion, and I think this could be done administratively. I would advise that we, at least in the interim time, put a disclaimer that public comment is not endorsed by the Board of County Commissioners, nor it is a statement of the position of the Board of County Commissioners, just to make it clear that when someone speaks in this room under public comment, it is that individual's statement, not any position adopted by this board.
That worked on my GIS maps. I put the disclaimer on there
Yeah.
saying we're not guaranteeing anything.
So I think, again, I want to just reiterate, the policy that is being contemplated does not impact the videoing or broadcasting of any of the public comment. We currently don't have a policy for broadcasting. We've been given direction by the Board of County Commissioners on how we're going to broadcast. At the last work session, we contemplated changing that video of the public comment if this policy was to be adopted. But the policy itself does not regulate that. If you don't pass this policy, we stay the way we were, the way we've handled public comment, the way we have for years. We handle the videoing the way we have for years. The public comment at the beginning of the meeting is televised. Public comment at the end of the meeting is televised. None of that changes. If you adopt this policy, then you could give direction on how you want the videoing to occur, or you just don't adopt this policy and we stay as is. That's your preference. But again, the policy is not what is outlining what's videoed and what's not.
So what you're saying, Mark, is once I understand and we're clear on that. If we approve this, then we can come back at a later date and discuss about the audience participation being streamed live. Is that correct?
It's already streamed.
Well, I'm talking about where people come in and they're not on the agenda.
The only thing that this policy changes is that it allows for public comment
before
the meeting on non-agenda items, and it allows for public comment during the agenda items as they come up. So it actually allows for more participation. Now, the direction given at the work session, and I know it's just a consensus that you had, was that the video would change at that time. And that we would only videotape the stuff that happened during the meeting. The public comment before the meeting on non-agenda items would not be broadcast. So that's really the difference here, is that I believe that some of the commission would like to have all of the public comment broadcast, and some of the commission would only like the stuff that's on the agenda broadcast. So
I guess no matter how we spin this, whatever, anything that's going on in these chambers, work session or meetings, I think we need to be broadcasting. There's nothing. Let me finish. There's nothing that anybody's going to say in this room, or shouldn't be able to say, that we can't share with every citizen who can't come up here and be able to watch. So I get where we're improving it, but I still like the honest participation being live.
It is. That's what we're saying, is that that's what we're going to continue to do.
That's not what Mark just said.
No, if we changed that, if we had voted to change, then it would have. But to have it remain as our existing process, we have public comment on agenda items before the meetings. Those are televised. And then we will have public comment at the end of the meetings, which are also televised. There's that everything is going to remain as it was. There's going to be no change.
So what you're telling me is we're not going to turn the camera off
No.
anytime during any of our
No.
meetings or our work session.
No,
Then I'm
that's
I'm
it.
fine with that.
Yeah.
Just leave it.
We're just leaving it as it is.
So, well, clarification. If we had, this is what he's saying, if we adopted this policy, we're just adjusting where the comments are taking place. We're not addressing even the issue of YouTube. That is a separate issue.
That's a separate issue.
And
I don't.
so I support this policy. We had a large discussion and there was a lot of public comment about the YouTube part of it. But I think if we divorce the YouTube part of it from this, I think this is a good policy that we came up with. And then if we just instruct staff, we're not changing anything on the YouTube.
Right. Exactly.
So I'm okay with
We're
going ahead and
where we
making a
were.
motion to.
But he wants to
But
change
we
the
don't
policy.
we don't need a motion.
Well, you're saying just leave the policy, but I'm
Right.
saying to go ahead and adopt what we came up with.
But that wasn't really what we came up with in
Well,
the
at
work
the work
session. No.
No, you changed after the work session.
No.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
policy
yeah.
on the YouTube only.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you changed. So
No.
No,
We
okay.
just said that the YouTube
You
was
can-
separate from this
you can
policy.
do a motion
You was at
and
the
there can
same
be a
work
vote.
session I
That's
was
fine.
You didn't hear what he said. The YouTube policy is separate.
We need to order, don't talk over each other, please.
I agree.
Take turns, please, and thank you.
I'm not making any motion.
I move that we adopt the proposed policy.
Second.
A motion and second. Begin voting with Commissioner Smith,
No.
Commissioner Stephen,
Aye.
Commissioner Culberson.
No.
Aye.
I vote no. Motion fails. And we will remain as we have continued.
No change.
No change. All right. Now, presentations.
One more thing, Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Yes.
Second. I did provide each of the members with a copy of Washington Post article that says YouTube initially had a policy where they were editing certain comments and public comment times.
Regarding COVID.
And it was regarding COVID. They repealed that, and they're not doing that anymore. So they are allowing open public comment just as that always has been. So that's from the Washington Post if you want a credible source.
Okay. Thank you. Right.
A what?
A recognized source.
Yeah,
Leave it
okay.
like
There
that,
you go.
Jeff.
There you
A
go.
recognized source, anyway.
Recognized source.
Okay, we're up to quarterly reports. Okay, for solid waste. We have Pammy coming. And
Morning, Tammy.
Much easier topic.
Thank you.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, but don't talk yet.
Yeah, let's see what you say first,
Trash.
Tammy.
We want the camera rolling for that.
This is our quarterly report for solid waste. We processed 260 more tons this first quarter than we did last year at this time. We processed 19 tons of tires last year, and it decreased to 16 this first quarter. So I'm hoping that's a trend that's going to keep continuing. I'm about tired of tires. We've seen an increase in brush by 103 tons. Special waste, which is the city grit, stayed the same. Annual cleanup residents increased by 38 and disposing of 19 more tons than the first quarter last year. HHW appointments increased by 39 There's a new information down about HHW facilities that Jim is in the process of talking with the state about. So once that's all figured out what we have to do, we'll let you know.
Tammy, can you spell it instead of just saying HHW?
Oh, household hazardous waste, sorry. We had a heavy equipment operator retire. That's the first one ever that was just retired and didn't quit or let go. So
that's a good thing.
That was exciting.
That's a good thing.
He's been replaced with Austin, who is filling in very nicely. We have another one that his last day is Saturday because his wife is getting deployed back to Washington, their home state. So we're in the process of replacing him. Tarp packets have been put together, and we're going to roll that out May 1st.
That's cool.
Robbie's working with Stephanie to get that on social media.
Can I ask you, for people that may not have heard exactly what that is again, that y'all are going to be doing?
The tarp?
Yes, please.
We're increasing our tarp fee from $5 to $10 for loads that are not tarped or secured and losing items on the highway.
And then you will give.
And then we'll give them. You're providing them
tarp and tarp straps.
Correct.
That's the important
thing.
thing.
That's part of that fee.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's the important part. Okay, thank you.
We had a record last Saturday of 221 customers.
Wow.
And we had a record Tuesday, a record total of 233 customers through there yesterday.
Then you got the new weight station.
I was going to say, I think that's probably helping if people they can get in and out there a lot quicker and if they drive by and see a line.
Yep.
Well, yes, because we are training a new operator. It is, and you can't control, if you get 5 trucks come in and they can just unload really quick. Mm-hmm. If you get all 6 bays full with, hand unloaders that have truck and trailer, there's nothing we can do about that.
Right.
It takes them however long it takes them. So that's not something we can control, but it is still faster than it used to be.
Oh, yeah.
Way faster.
Madam Chairman, while you're on that topic, I'd like to say something about the transfer station. You recently received, I believe Mark sent it around, photographs of trash.
I was going to bring that up.
Various items that have been dumped in one of our creeks. Well, when I started here, that was a common occurrence. A common occurrence. People would find washing machines in their front yards, refrigerators in their front yards, bags of trash, very often with envelopes in it that would allow you to identify the person who the trash was stolen from. But and I used the transfer station. I was there Saturday morning, and it was a long line. But in prior days, a lot of those trucks would have gone out in the county and dumped, and that doesn't occur anymore. So I would just like to impress upon you, the transfer station is not only a convenience, it works wonders for the appearance of this county. And it's just something you should keep in mind, that the trash that goes through that transfer station is going to go somewhere, and it doesn't go in our ditches.
And I want to take that one step further and remind everybody that everybody in the county, including in the cities, gets to dump there for free once a year.
And
that's important. Yeah.
And do you know who used to get the calls to go clean that trash up?
somebody, and we need to help each other and assist each other. If you see and observe someone dumping illegally, please report it, because that's one of the only ways that we can discourage that from occurring. And so we need cooperation from the public. And anybody who is guilty of doing it, shame on you.
Amy, what's a normal load, like a pickup load of trash? What's the fee for that?
$5 if it's standard household kitchen trash,
Right.
and $13 if it's construction materials.
So worst case scenario, somebody's looking at paying $13, probably only $5, but $13 to go dump that stuff, rather than throw it in a creek that then contaminates the creek downstream and makes the that property.
That's good. That's a good point, Mark. That's a good point.
$5 probably, but no more than 13. So there's no reason for it. It's just laziness, really.
Or free the
Okay.
first time.
Okay,
It's free
thank
the
you.
first time. Yeah.
And Tammy, were you want to continue before we?
Nope, that's all I have.
Right, okay, I just wanted to make sure that we were.
Sorry.
To my 3 minutes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because I know that we kind of, peppered you with questions and comments and then, let you
The
finish
main
what you.
comment is KDHE's happy.
And you're doing an
That's huge.
outstanding job.
That is huge.
You're doing an incredible job and we really appreciate it and just keep talking trash.
That's right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I see a podcast in your future. Talking trash with Tammy.
Trash talking with
Thanks, Tammy.
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay, come on up.
Come on
We
down,
have the
Bob.
appraiser's office. Welcome, Bob.
Morning again. I don't have a big report here since we were just here about a month ago.
Right.
We're done scheduling informals. The deadline for scheduling informal appeals for our 2022 valuation was the 31st. And we have 789 appeals, parcels appealed out of that, and you can see what the numbers were over the last few years. It's higher than what it has been, and that was kind of to be expected with the way values went up now 2 years in a row. We sent personal property renditions. We have to value all personal property, taxable personal property, and mail renditions by May 1st. I think if I put the 5th in there, that was a typo. By May 1st. Thought I changed that. We have received 3,334 renditions back, and we have valued 2,452 of those. Those that come back late, after March 15th, the penalty is 5% a month, up to 25%, and the failure to file is 50%. County appraisers are required to put the penalty on there, and the state does check on this. And it's only the State Board of Tax Appeals that has the authority to abate that penalty. The number of sales so far for the first quarter are down from the last couple of years, although it's probably a little more what was typical for the last 10 years, if there can be a typical. First quarter is very volatile, depending on the weather, that sort of thing. January and February are usually your slowest months for real estate sales. The sale prices, as far as we see, have not gone down. They're probably not increasing at the same rate as they were. We'll know more come May, June, July. That time frame is where you hit the bulk of your sales as to what is going on with the market as far as where values are going. But people I talk to in the real estate business, they haven't indicated that values have dropped at all. May not be increasing like they were, but property tax legislation. There's HB 2002 that was amended. It allows for fee appraisals and residential appeals, which already were allowed, but maybe it makes it more statutory. We're required to put 2 previous years of values instead of we put 1 previous year. That's just a programming change that'll have to be done by the state. It's really not a problem. Discontinues the prohibition of payment under protest after the spring valuation appeal. That is, right now, if those 789 properties that appealed cannot launch a payment under protest for the same tax year, with essentially appealing their value. They have one chance to appeal their value. That takes that away and allows unless it changed hands. Now, if it changed hands, you could. But that allows somebody to appeal in the spring and then appeal at payment of protest and start all over again through the same appeals process, or whether the argument's changed or not. And it codifies some adverse agricultural land influences. Those are like canopy cover and frequent flooding, both of which we have some in this county. But it just puts them in law as started as far as PVD policy. The HB 2457 would increase the 20 mil school general levy exemption from $40,000 to $80,000. This is for residential property only. It applied last year. They increased it. So the first, right now, the first $40,000 of residential valuation is exempt against the 20 mil school general levy. They increased it from $20,000 last year, and this is proposing increasing it to $80,000. I suppose that's their answer to their revenue neutral thing. Although I thought the $40,000 was supposed to increase based on a average valuation increase across the state per year. But SCR 1610. Probably all we're aware of, limits valuations increased 3%, except for, if property changed hands or if there was some construction on the property. And it's a constitutional amendment. It requires a constitutional amendment because the Constitution now requires a valuation, not revalue one property and not another property. So it requires 2/3 majority.
Bob, I think they amended it to 4%.
Did they amend it to 4%? Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't keep up with the daily changes, sorry.
But it did pass the Senate.
Did it?
After midnight?
I don't know when.
They were there till 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were there late.
SB 252, I'm sure you were aware of this, creates a sales tax exemption for businesses located in facilities with facilities owned and operated by a government entity that competes against that business. This could be very broad. Could grant it is. They did define the businesses as limited to child care centers, entertainment business, exercise business, health clubs, recreation businesses, or restaurants.
That's huge. That's huge for this county.
If the business exists, there's a caveat in there whether the business existed when the activity was started or not. And I don't know that I would want to be the one to try to go backtrack and figure out whether the business was there before that activity started.
But you would be the one.
Well, I understand that. Just saying,
you don't want to be.
And then the last one I did forget to put it on there. It was the veterans exemption. There was a bill that would exempt certain veterans based on disability, percent of disability. You could give them a full exemption from property taxes.
And that's going to go under homestead?
Yes, on homestead. Yes.
Okay. So how will it affect the other folks on homestead? Will they have the same advantages of?
No.
They have an income restriction.
They're currently, to my knowledge, it did not. But
No, it did not.
It was based on the percent of disability.
Right.
But non-veterans on the claiming homestead have an income limit, correct?
That's correct. And the limit of the property valuation, too. So the property has to be valued under $300,000.
Okay.
Those folks.
Under 300?
It's 500 for the
But they're going to
veterans.
change it to 500?
I don't know if there's a bill with that or not. If there is,
Okay.
but it could be.
And this hasn't been acted on. They're going to act on that
After
when they come back.
Right, correct.
So,
And it could be funded by the state, correct?
The general fund,
It could be.
the money that they
The
collected
current
from our
amount,
local
if
ad
they handle it
valorem
under the
anyway.
homestead,
Yeah.
it would.
If that's what I'm saying,
homestead
if it
is
goes under the
funded by
homestead,
the
it will be
state.
funded
we'll take our property tax.
until
That's
they
a-
don't fund it.
Yeah, until they don't.
Credit gets there.
Okay.
And they're just using the local ad valorem that they've collected
Surprise.
from us to pay for it anyway.
That's another conversation
Yeah.
when this is all, after the legislature's done and we don't return our local ad valorem, that's another conversation I think this board needs to have.
Okay.
Mrs. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a question
Yes,
for Bob.
sure.
Could you review, so I know some folks that have missed the deadline on the appeal, but now, so the next option is to pay under protest. Could you kind of walk through that process? What's the payment under protest?
Payment on protest, they just got to register a protest form at the time they pay the taxes. Unless their taxes are in escrow, they have till January 31st to protest those if the bank paid their taxes. They could do either the first half or the second half. They can lodge a protest at any time they pay taxes. Usually you cannot protest the taxes after they've been paid, after the deadline to pay the taxes. So if you paid your taxes and next year you decide you want to protest them, you can't do that. Once they've been paid, the only exception is that the taxes in escrow. It gives folks a little bit extra time on that.
So if they missed their deadline on the appeal, they can contact your office and give them the paperwork to...
My office, actually, it's the treasurer's office. We have the paperwork too.
Okay, or the treasurer's office.
It's online at State Board of Tax Appeals website. I think the county treasurer has it online under their site. The paperwork is.
So if you've missed your deadline, that's your next option?
Yes.
All right.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Anybody else have anything for Bob?
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, thank you.
Have a great
Thank
day. Okay, let's go on down to our public comment before we do our roundabout. So we will start with Mr. John Wagner.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is John Wagner. I live at 22578 Easton Road, Easton, Kansas. I'm here just concerned, still having some issues with smell on the landfill next door. The last 5 days, it's been a little bit in the mornings, Sunday, tried to have a beautiful day out, Easter, tried to have something outside, and the odor is just hard to deal with. I know every time I call around or whatever, they say they're working on it. My concerns is that it's got 18 inches of cover. It's supposed to have 3 foot. They're working on that. They dig up the hot spots, fill it with slurry. I guess I'm at the point is who inspects this? Who looks at this? What's the timeline? I mean, how much time do they have to get this backfilled? How much time do they have to get the fire to deal with the smell? Because I'm seeing trucks running up and down the road like they're operating with like nothing's wrong. That it's just an everyday operation, and the wind has changed. It's out of the south now. All winter it was out of the north. Not very many houses are on the south side of the landfill. Now we're reaping the wonderful smell. You can't open your windows, otherwise your house gets filled up with it. It's an issue that is just some mornings is hard to deal with, and some days here lately has been a little bit strong. And I don't see smoke. I'll say that because I've gone and looked across. I don't see where it's smoke. But there's a smell. And the way I understand it, a C&D landfill is not supposed to have a smell. Whether you have a fire or whatever, it's not supposed to have a smell. And, unfortunately, there's other issues you deal with. I know for the last year, there's, if their machines are broke down, people do dump. I have a farm down on Kramer Creek, and people dump down there. If they can't dump in the landfill, they go down there and they dump. And they dump more than 10 feet off the road, and the county don't come and pick it up if it's more than 10 foot off the road. It's up to the landowner to take care of it, whether it's brush, shingles, trash, whatever it is. And I know 4 different times last year it's happened on my place. There's a curb down there that it looks like there's been more stuff dumped there in the past year. And it's just, I'm just concerned what our steps are. I know your guys' hands are tied, but it's just a factor that I think after 14 months, it should have been resolved, that we shouldn't be still dealing with a smell after a issue that happened 14 months ago. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Could I inquire just an update from either Mark or David on that issue? He brings up some good points. I know there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes to try to get this corrected. But if it's all right, Madam Chair, I'd like to ask David to give us an update on that.
Well, Commissioners, Mr. Wagner's concerns are consistent. We've been hearing about this for more than 14 months, and there is definitely an issue up there. I don't think Mr. Wagner's making anything up. If anything, he's probably understating what the conditions are. That being said, the county has identified its engineering team. Flatland identified their engineering team. They have begun the process of the inspection, including core drilling, of the facility to include sampling what's in the landfill. A report will be provided to both Flatland and the county upon the conclusion of that study. It was our anticipation that the county would share that report with Kansas Department of Health and Environment, because Kansas Department of Health and Environment is, at least they declare themselves to be, the controlling agency for that landfill.
Right.
We know what
That's what they say.
We know what that has led to. That being said, it's my understanding from comments you have made, this commission intends to continue to pursue some form of relief for the property owners in that area. If it can't come through KDHE, my understanding is this board will continue to explore its options to try to get you some relief.
And I just had a quick question. So, Mr. Wagner, you're saying that the smell is still there, there's still a strong smell, because Representative Neely testified in Topeka that there is no smell.
I know that, but there's a smell.
So you're saying
any morning, this morning,
okay.
This morning, the last 5 mornings, you could come out. In fact, all day on Sunday, Monday, the odor was strong. It's there. So, and the wind's right. The wind can shift, and it may not be at my house, but it'll be further at somebody else's. I'm just saying it varies to where you're sitting in the valley.
Thank you.
And there's sometimes when it comes out of the north, you drive down the back road. And I'm going to say there are some days there is no odor. I'm not going to tell you that every day has been, but there has been some odor-free days, which I'm thankful for, but them are very, very, very few and far between.
Thank you, John.
I have one
Appreciate
question. Has the character of the neighborhood, would you say, since Flatlands took over since the last 3 years, has the character of the neighborhood changed?
We have kind of a policy. Sorry, John, I'm not trying to interrupt, but we've, as a policy, said that we're not doing interaction. So let's just talk amongst ourselves, and we can ask staff.
We do not have a policy that says we can't interact with the public. We have never adopted that policy. I rarely do it, but I think this is a time when I would like to ask him, in the time you've lived there, has the character of your neighborhood changed in the last 3 years?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and it's not to the positive side, but it's changed a lot. So, in my opinion, I mean, in the community and everything. So, amongst others, and there's, I mean, even with other people that live out and about, I mean, it's you see a big difference.
Thank you.
And it's not in a good way. So that's just my opinion. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks.
And I think it does say that in our policy, because I always felt bad for people that they didn't understand why we weren't conversing with them
Right.
when they would give their public comment, and it specifically says in there that the public can expect an interaction from the board. Because
Well,
of the
I
public
typically do not ask questions, but
And-
there are
Yes.
times when.
But I was just asking that we kind of follow,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
tried to get him to, I mean, I'm just trying to say, and he stopped, but we need to follow our own.
As far as I know, show me it in writing that we are not allowed to interact with the.
Dave's working on it. I can tell.
There should be no expectation of it.
That's it.
And I understand, but I think that we have to treat we've just had a conversation about treating people fairly and equitably. I think that came from you earlier in the meeting, that we need to treat
And I'm
people.
all for that,
So we
but-
need to make sure that we're consistent, and we have been consistent in saying that we're not going to have exchanges with
Yeah.
people during.
hard to do.
And I typically go with that, but I do not believe it's in writing. You can show me if I'm wrong, and I'll stand corrected. I don't believe it's in writing. But I will tell you, as a commissioner, when someone comes up and speaks, there are times when I gather information for how I'm going to vote from a person that comes and interacts with us. Very rarely do I interact, but I do believe it should be our prerogative.
But we're not voting on anything, he said.
We're asking
But
for
I'm just saying
information.
that we're.
Then
I
you
think
should go
that we
talk
need.
to Mr. Wagner after the meeting.
In a public setting, there's a time and a place.
Well, I'm just trying to maintain order and following what we have indicated to the public when we have people that are signing up for public comment. And I appreciate the comments that John Wagner gave to us. However, I just want to make certain, because we have ignored, and we've had people ask us questions and we do not acknowledge the questions because it has been routinely, but if you're going to break with routine, then we have to be willing to break with routine for every single person who walks up here and speaks with us. That
I'm just saying I don't believe that policy's in writing, that we cannot interact with members of the public at public
yes,
comment.
it is our prerogative to break every
Right.
single rule
But
or policy or anything else that we establish.
and-
And
and-
as the chair,
Could
it's
we-
within my authority to say that let's not do this.
Could we move on, please?
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, now let's move on to what we did over the past week, and I'll start with Commissioner Smith.
Okay, I have a Bayshore City Council tonight, and then the JCAB meeting. I can't stress enough how important it is that this board meets with the Atchison Board of County Commissioners to get something worked out.
Yep.
We had quite the interesting meeting on Thursday. And then I believe, mark your calendars, I believe May 12th is Child Care Provider Appreciation Day. Did you get the emails on that?
Yes, sure did.
Okay. Yeah, that's some other day too, isn't it? Military Spouse Appreciation Day also? Does that sound right? Does anybody?
I think we got Law Enforcement Day coming up in May, too.
Something, yeah. We got a lot of stuff coming up that we'll probably have to have proclamations for.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think that's all I got. And I cannot make the Thursday, either one. The Thursday, the breakfast,
That's
child
tomorrow.
abuse,
I
and
plan
I
on
can't
being
make
there.
the ribbon cutting at Eisenhower.
That's fine. Got you covered.
I might be able to make the Eisenhower, but I can't do the morning thing. So that's all I have.
Mr. Stevens?
Attended the Panasonic to Prosperity event at KU yesterday, which is a collaboration event, and the main three issues that they boiled down for the conversation with local leaders from basically it's a number of counties, but basically I believe it's Wyandotte, Leavenworth, Johnson, and Douglas counties. The three primary issues that they boiled it down to are workforce, housing, and transit. And I met your is it a director?
Is that in order? Is that how they
No, it's
made it?
not in order. These
Okay.
are just
Because I
three
thought housing
issues.
was the number one issue.
Well, these are the three issues that have bubbled up to be considered. And our conversation was about what's happening now, and what do you think the group should know about, what should be happening to keep, what are concerns that the community will have to make these things happen. And I attended the workforce event, and the real issue in workforce is the demographics are so bad. We're going to have such a fall off of young people. Even we may have universities closing in Kansas. I don't think people realize that the numbers of young people is so declining. There's going to be what they call a cliff. So that's going to affect being able to get workers, and that's some of the things that were discussed. Other thing, tomorrow night, 6 o'clock at Tonganoxie Public Library, the third meeting of our property tax task force. We've been meeting. We're going to go over the constitutional amendment that was passed, see how that compares with what the county. We're going to actually look at the text, see how that compares with what we asked for, and then look at some other items like the veterans, some of the things, and how this would affect local government, but this one might not affect local government as much. So, and that's all I have right now. I'm planning to go to the
breakfast
to serve.
Good.
Tomorrow. So.
And then I'm sure you put a lot of emphasis on schools, correct? On the property tax meeting you're having tomorrow night.
Well, yeah, all
because
local
I mean,
government.
all that stuff that affects the county's portion is very little.
That's
very
right.
little.
Comparatively speaking.
Commissioner
yes.
Smith makes a good point.
Okay. Commissioner Culberson, do you have something?
Oh, I had given the presentation on transportation at the chamber meeting last Wednesday, and given that again tomorrow at the Lions Club meeting, and then had Leavenworth City Council meeting last night.
Okay, thanks, Jim. I have a couple. Again, Doug's taken one thing about the ribbon cutting, and for folks, just a reminder, this was a effort between the city of Lansing and the city of Leavenworth working together to get things done for that improvement in front of Quick Trip. That's on Thursday at 3:30. I'll be attending, and it'll be a nice event. The other thing I want to end up on a positive note, since we've had some good discussion today, is last 2.5 years I've been here, I've noticed a trend, which I'm very thankful for. County has always had good employees. Jeff, Doug, people that's been here for years. But what I've noticed in the last couple of years, and I'll just mention a few names, if I forget some, I forget it, is the people we're attracting to work for the county now. We got Tom Cole from Economic Development. We got Jamie, who was just here. We got Misty, who we just hired on as an attorney. We got Monica, who we just put as HR director. We got Bill from Public Works. Got Connie from Council on Aging. And then we just hired John Jacobson. There's about 8 people. These are not just good people. These are quality folks that I know and have worked with. So hats off to Mark and whoever else is, and I know all of us do a little interviews, but attracting these kind of people are only going to make Leavenworth County a better place, especially when they're in leadership roles. That's all I have.
Okay, and before I wrap up, I got kind of sidetracked a little bit, and I forgot. I really did. Got a little bit sidetracked. We have Mr. McMillan who had asked for public comment, and I'm going to go ahead and let you come and you had requested after the meeting as well. I apologize. I just.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, it's been a pretty intense meeting. So, with your permission, what I intended to talk about, which was transparency and taxation budget. Like to maybe postpone it to a later meeting. But I will, if I'm allowed, take this opportunity. 2 things. First thing is, Mr. Van Paris has a later experience than I, but I went to the transfer station a couple weeks ago, and I was very impressed with how well it was run. Took my no-fee load. That went well. I guess somebody of my age, when you talk waste management, you almost think you might be stepping into an episode from The Sopranos, and it wasn't like that at all. It was a very positive experience.
Good. We're glad to hear that.
But I would also like to say, I live a little farther away than Mr. Wagner, but Easter morning we went to sunrise service, got out maybe a little bit before 6 to do chores, smell was noticeably bad.
Thank you.
And yesterday I drove past, I think, where you live, the Crook Hill area, and it was kind of bad midday, so just thought I'd pass.
Thank you for
Thank you.
bringing that up.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, and then I'll just say, wrapping up, I will also be going for the Child Abuse Prevention breakfast, and if anybody's interested, it will be at the Heritage Center tomorrow morning, beginning at 6:30 a.m., I believe. So if you want a really good breakfast, and there's always a good breakfast for that event, it's $15 to come, and it's pretty much as you want to eat. But you will have great people there providing service for you. Our elected officials and other celebrities will be coming to take care of you, and we look for. And we probably have some city commissioners who will be attending as well. So we have our county attorney, lots of people that will be there taking care of you tomorrow morning. So please come. Let's see. Last week we did have the JCAB meeting, and it was an interesting meeting to say the least. And I agree we need to arrange to meet with our fellow commissioners from Atchison. And yesterday I participated in strategic planning for the Kansas City Area Transit Authority, and so I look forward to seeing some of the changes and things that we're going to set as priorities and goals for the next 5 years with that organization. And I believe that's all I have today. So if there's nothing further.
Just two quick items.
Mark?
First of all, you had asked us to reach out to our local representatives. We've had one respond that they were able to make either this week or next week's meeting. So Senator Pittman will be joining us next week at your request. And then the Tonganoxie work session with the Tonganoxie City Council, they did confirm May 1st, 5:30.
That's a Monday night.
It's a Monday night in Tongi.
Oh,
Okay.
it'll be before their meeting.
It'll be before
their
meeting.
meeting.
Oh,
It's
okay.
early, right?
Yep.
Anything
They
else?
do an hour and a half to meet with them then.
Motion to adjourn.
They would like an agenda. So if you have any topics, please pass
I'd
those
just
on.
say
to
the
others than
222nd Street would be the most important thing right now.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I don't think we need anything else.
Then we can just,
I
If
think
you
they
wanted-
did. They were interested, kind of, in
yeah.
and visit like we did with the other
Right.
cities.
Yeah.
Sure.
Talk
Okay.
about.
Yeah,
Got a motion
I
for
think
issues.
the most critical thing is that road.
I think you're right.
Have a motion to
Second.
Motion is second. Begin voting with Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.